Welcome to the Black Belt Business Podcast. My name is Matthew Brenner, and today I'm with Brodie Farber. Brodie is an MMA fighter, former MMA fighter. He went 24-8 in professional fighting. Had a bunch of knockouts, been knocked out a couple times. I think most of the time though, you like to choke people out more than anything or tap people out. Is that right? Is
That's
that
what
your
ended up
specialty?
happening. So, well, it usually would be I would hurt somebody with striking, and then I would get them a submission. So
Mm.
it seemed kind of, yeah, it was the main mode. I look more like a submission fighter for sure, and that's how it got finished more. But especially later on, I was definitely more striker and did a lot of kickboxing and Muay Thai as well. So,
Cool. So we're going to talk a lot today, and Brodie, I would say, has a more non-traditional storyline when it comes to martial arts. A lot of times people will join martial arts, maybe they'll fight for a while professionally, and eventually they'll open up their school. But you didn't want to be tied down necessarily to a school when you finish your fighting career. So now you train people in private lessons and you do workshops in different countries. So we'll talk about that too. Let's talk about some other cool jobs you've had and still do, like breeding dogs and stuff like that. So I'm really interested to hear about that because I looked at your Instagram and see it like this enormous dog that looked like it could swallow me without chewing. I was like, holy shit. So that's cool to see. So, but first I want to talk to you about is your MMA career. So I know you fought for other promotions before. So what other promotions did you fight for before the UFC?
so I was the middleweight champ of Rage in the Cage, which was a kind of the one of the bigger ones. There used to be bigger promotions before that were kind of feeders in the UFC. There was Max Fights, which was in Mexico. There was Total Combat, Reno Maximo. So most of my fights were in Tijuana, Mexico, Mexico City. For those promotions, I fought in the WEC once when that was a promotion kind of before the UFC bought it. Probably quite a few other ones that I don't even really remember at this point that have some kind of cage fighting something. But
Yeah.
it was like Max Fights was a lot of them. Rage in the Cage was a lot of them, and then kind of all over from there. So
Why were you fighting in Mexico?
it was illegal in the States, and that
Mhm.
was kind of where at the inception you could go and get fights. And it was, we ended up going down there for some penetration and grappling tournaments. And one of the guys kind of told me, I was like, I'm start promotions and if you want to fight. So it kind of started off where there was bare knuckle fights. A lot of them were like in bars. They would just put a ring in or at the racetrack there was a lot of cool facilities like Tangaloo, Baby Rock, Senior Frogs. Yeah, the racetrack, different spots. Like it was wild. I actually fought. I think it was like the chief of police or one of the head police officers that was a judo guy at Senior Frogs one time.
That's
So yeah, so
that's all.
it was
That was the only
it was
time you could
wild.
hit a police officer and not be
Yeah,
arrested.
yeah, he was cool.
Uh,
He always was like, hey, if you need any help in Tijuana, like let me know. He was a cool guy.
Damn. So, is your family from the U.S.?
Yeah, yeah, they are. So I was born, yeah, in Northern California, but we would go and so I lived in San Diego for a long time. And if you're from that area, you can cross the border and get back pretty easy. It's harder
Yeah.
now, but it's like it used to be able to just walk across and pretty much walk right back. So it was very easy if you were down in Southern California. So,
So, would you just travel down for fights and come back, or would you live there at the time?
so I lived in San Diego for almost 18 years, but
Mm.
it started where I lived in Northern California, and I would travel down there for fights. And then when I wanted to up my level of training, I was in a small town. It just wasn't there, and I wanted to take it serious. Kind of chose in between a couple spots, and San Diego was the spot I chose. And then when we were in San Diego, it was super easy to go back and forth. It was like nothing.
And this is the early 2000s.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, what was the fight scene like then? Before it was legal in the U.S., before UFC is what it is now, which is on beverages at like the supermarket, right? Like, what was it like fighting in MMA then? Like, what did your friends think or your family think?
They thought it was pretty scary. I remember, especially at first, kind of before you do something. I remember I told them I was going to go down and do it. They were like, "You're going to get fucked up. Like, what are you doing? That's crazy." And I went down and started doing well, and like anything, then once someone sees you do well, they start believing in it. And I mean, it was because you couldn't really look up who you were fighting. You kind of didn't know. There was always the risk of getting injured. The medical care wasn't there. They weren't taking blood. They weren't doing any kind of exams that look at you like Okay, teeth are there, eyes are good. Like you get in the ring and fight, so you can fight just random people you wouldn't know. Sometimes they were doing good, sometimes they weren't. It was definitely wild. It was fun, man. I look back fondly at those times and just the kind of adventures that came from it.
Were your family and friends worried about you? Like, he might die, or was it just like, he'll be all right. He's a tough guy.
They didn't worry about it too much. It just kind of, I think I always was from a young age. They were like, he's gonna do it anyway. So like, good luck. You know, a lot of friends and family would end up going with me. Like one of my brothers would tag along to almost all the events, fights, and then a lot of friends would want to go and stuff, and his friends would want to go. It's also a party after. So guys would go there, and the guys that weren't fighting, and some of the guys that after the fights, they would go and do the fights, and then you can go out all night and do whatever. So it's kind of free for all. Where a lot of college kids will cross the border before they can drink legally in the States, and they can go to Revolution Street and drink all night some weird Kool-Aid, cheap tequila, get too drunk and not spend too much money and stumble back across the border or whatever. So
Hmm. And then at that time, there wasn't like money in
no,
fighting, right? Like,
no.
so so were you doing it just because you loved it, or you felt like you needed to lay hands on someone to get out aggression? Like, what was it that made you decide, okay, like I'm going to dedicate essentially my life to this?
It was just something when I remember the first day I did it. I was heavily into weightlifting, and then I kind of wanted to go to a boxing gym, and there wasn't any boxing gyms where I was at. I went and trained the first day, and it was just like, this is what I want to do. This is just something that, for whatever reason, just clicked with me, and it completely changed my trajectory. Because I was in school. I was going to go to my plan was to transfer to UC Davis to go to law school, and I just switched like immediately. I was like a couple of years in. I was like, okay, now I'll just maybe switch to business because I already got some time in. That's only 4 years instead of 6 years, and but yeah, I completely went to where it was like it's just what I want to do. So
So did you finish your business degree, or
I did. Yeah, I got my bachelor's degree in business marketing, and yeah, so.
when you were fighting and you were totally in it, did you think of yourself as like a business person whose business is fighting, or did you think of yourself as a fighter? How did you think of yourself?
Definitely more as a fighter. But I also, I opened up the gym down there and I did other stuff to where I knew fighting is not a good idea financially. The risk to reward, the amount of time you have to put in, especially at the time, there wasn't money in it. So it was like I have to do other things to make sure I'm good to do what I actually love. Because yeah, if that's anyone that would actually go to school or knows about business knows it's not a good business plan to go be a fighter, basically.
So what else would you do to make money at the time?
So especially in the beginning, it was running the gym and it was a lot of private lessons. It was a lot of things associated with that. I had a clothing line at the time too that I kind of let go, but ended up licensing out. Everlast was kind of using it, so I had some stuff from that. Just stuff would come up a lot, and kind of fun things, but it would usually come from the gym, from private lessons, from offsets of that. When you're training people, especially in San Diego, you kind of offer other stuff as well. People be run different business stuff by you. So.
Is that because it's like an affluent area, or because a lot of people who are like CEOs or I don't know, a business capitalists that they're just like they want to get MMA lessons, and you're like the cool guy they really like hanging out with? How does that happen?
I think it's a little bit of all that. So San Diego is definitely, I think it's one of the most expensive places to live in the U.S. now. It's very affluent. There's a lot of money there, and with that, to be able to take private lessons, you already have a little bit more money. You're not doing the classes, you're doing the one-on-one, and the guys would have certain stuff, especially once they're like, when they want to work with you, when they're like, okay, this guy's a fighter, but he also knows what he's talking about business-wise. And there's also the fact that sometimes guys just want to throw money at things, and like there's some nerdy business guy. They want to help fund something with and show their friends that they're friends with this crazy MMA fighter or whatever, just add some excitement, to their, they're sitting on a computer all day or they've got some white collar job or whatever. So they kind of a lot of times want to be a part of things.
you're the trophy trainer, like they're showing you off.
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes it comes
Yeah.
to that.
So was there at some point you ended up running a school, as in going from private lessons to actually running a school? Tell me about that.
So that the one in San Diego is one that I actually ended up buying and kind of taking over. So it was Black Tiger Muay Thai. It was the main striking gym in San Diego. And when I went down there, I would visit and train there. And there was the guy that took it over, kind of, I think he was in a bad relationship. He broke up with his girlfriend. He wasn't doing good money wise, and he was kind of shutting the doors. And I was like, hey, why don't I invest some money in? I'll throw a little bit of money at you. I'll come in and we'll get this going. And so we did exactly that and turned it around. Like all of the top gyms in San Diego, for the most part, all the really good striking trainers came out of Tiger Muay Thai. Like, but
Mm.
it had some of the most, like, all the guys came out of there. And it was a really cool old school gym. Like it had all the posters on the wall from all the fights from all the years. Just ring. It wasn't, maybe kept it clean, but it still had that little bit of, dirty, rugged. It wasn't super nice. It was pretty close to a military base, and it was a cool spot. It really was a cool spot. That's why I was like, I can't let this place close, and saw the opportunity was at the right time. I sold a property that I did up in Northern California, the first one I ever did right before I moved down there. So I had a little bit of money, not a whole lot, but a decent amount enough to kind of put into that and get it going. So
Hmm. So how much does it cost to buy a Muay Thai school that's failing in the two
it was like I put in about 10 grand. I think
ten
I
grand?
gave him.
Okay.
I gave him five, and I was like put five into the gym. So it
Okay.
was like I was like I got about 10 grand. I give you half of it. We'll put the rest in the gym, and we'll get it going. So yeah,
Were you 50-50 partners on it, or did you just take it
yeah.
over completely? Yeah.
No, we were 50-50 partners, and so he would teach and I would teach, and it ran well for a while. So it was good. So.
Did you run the business operations for that too, or did he do the
Yeah,
business
yeah.
ops?
No, I took over the business stuff. So we kind of split teaching the certain classes that worked for us. There wasn't a lot of, so it was a striking gym, but I also started teaching grappling classes because he was a kickboxer boxer. So he stuck with that. I taught some of that as well, and then I obviously taught all the grappling classes and ran the business stuff because that just wasn't what he was best at before.
Okay. So how did you learn the business operations of running a martial arts school at the time? Was it just through your business or a Muay Thai gym? Was it just through your business degree, or did you have someone else who ran schools that you knew how to do it?
I just figured it out. So I had the 2 years done of school, and then I actually didn't finish until after I sold that gym. Back when I just kind of left and was like, "Give me a little bit of money, I'm gonna leave." But I just figured it out.
You
So
just
at
figured
the
it out right
time,
away.
it was like, yeah, it was like it just little by little, just tweaking things and getting it done. So yeah, I didn't have any prior experience.
How did you feel like that impacted your fighting career? Because now you're running a business and you're teaching lessons all the time, as opposed to just focusing solely on fighting and being the best fighter. So how'd that impact you?
So that's why I kind of just, for the most part, I think I was like, hey, I'm done a couple years later. It was like, I got to focus on fighting. I don't want to, if I'm at the gym all day, then I don't want to train. I'm training with people all the time. And I just wanted to I was making a decent amount of money from other stuff. And I just wanted to kind of walk away. I think all I asked for was like, hey, just give me like the 5 grand back and you can have the gym, and it was running pretty good at the time, and I just didn't want to be there, and I also moved to North County, San Diego, which the drive ended up being like 30 minutes each way. I just didn't want to go back and forth all the time, and it was just time for a chapter. So
How long did it last after you left?
I don't think it lasted a whole long time, like 2 or 3 years after, and then kind of was
Okay.
hanging on for a minute, and then just kind of, yeah, close its doors.
Okay. All right. Cool. So you mentioned some other ways you make money, like through real estate and dog breeding. We'll talk about dog breeding soon, but through real estate, what's your strategy for making money through real estate?
So I've only done a little bit with that as far as I mean, just like I've bought houses or built them up. Then you hold on to them, rent them out, and sell them at the right time. Hopefully, like before recently when I talked about moving to recording to Mexico and kind of being done. I was able to get rid of a condo that I bought in 2010 at the bottom, and then 2020 everything really spiked. So that afforded me a lot of freedom there, and to just get out of that. And then like now, a couple rentals up here, and that kind of offsets things. And then hopefully, it pays the rent, it gives a little bit extra money, and as times progress, there's not a better asset to just for tax liability, for to write off, for and just to get your stuff paid as things go up over time, which they always do. So
Mm. Is that, did you like read real estate investing books, or is that also you just kind of figured it out as you went along?
no, that was actually more from seeing how my parents did things. So my parents, mostly my mom, so I think, like I remember the house that I was born into, and then they ended up buying a different property, and then they let us, they bought a different one, and they ended up buying. I think by the time they split up, they had like 6 houses or something that got divided between them, and they just keeping them over time and leveraging them. And it's like there was times that it was hard, especially if something would happen, or there was, like if these people weren't paying and these people weren't paying, and then something went wrong. But overall, if you can survive those hard times, there's not a better way to go, and just to eventually get to a spot. So
Yeah, yeah. I invest in properties too. I have a couple rentals that I've had for a while, and I think a lot of people think that you're gonna buy a house, it's gonna make money through rent, and everything's gonna be fine. And most of the time, it is fine, but you have to like zoom out and be like, how's it gonna be over the next 10 years,
yeah,
not how's it gonna be over a year? Because like specifically last year, I had a lot of things go wrong. You
oh
know,
yeah,
like all the electric went out in one of the units and an entire roof replacement and another place flooded. And it was like last year, my real estate investments, I lost 35 grand. Like
oh
literally
yeah,
$35,000 less out of my bank account. And that's like that's net. Like that's like with all the
yeah,
rent and I was like, and if I didn't have a cushion in a bank account that could cover that, right?
hmm
So make sure all the money that comes in stays in that specific account. So it'll cover this kind of thing. And B, you
yeah.
know that like over the course of 10 or 20 years, it's not really going to matter anyway. It's just like you have to be able to get past that hump because people think it's like a passive investment. It's like, dude, there's no passive investments. It's
Yeah,
never
no,
passive.
no, I've had a rough 6 months on one of them. I had a guy move in that like just came in, paid the first month, didn't pay, wouldn't leave, had to get him out. Then as soon as he was out, we got in and we started fixing some stuff up and found other stuff. This little remodel that was like to get ready for the next people. So it was like a big loss, and same thing, just like 6,000 job turned into almost a $20,000 job. So it was like missed 4 months of rent, the damage that he caused, all the costs to get him out, then another 20,000. Yeah, there's there's times where it could get pretty rough and tight, but overall, it can go pretty good. You just have to be in it long enough to hit the peaks and the valleys, and just at the right time. So.
I don't know what costs are being involved to get someone out because I feel like if you're my landlord and you show up and tell me to leave, like I'm not getting the courts involved. I'm like running away in
Yeah.
the middle of the night with the lights off and hoping you're not outside.
Yeah, this guy thought differently. He was a special one, and it was hard. I think he really didn't have anywhere to go. And he was like, he kept saying he was getting out. Yeah, so it was.
Was there anything you learned from that situation? Like, oh, I didn't run a background check, or oh, I just got unlucky, even though I feel like I did all the documentation the right way. Was there
Mm.
something you learned from that?
Yeah, I learned it. I learned a ton, so I know how to do that process a lot better now. But it was
Like
really,
eviction? You learned how to do
yeah,
eviction better? Okay.
yeah, much better, and how like all the dates work. It's just a process. You got to hit the dates. You got to follow. You got to follow the rules to a T. And with that, though, a lot of that was on me when I had an amazing lady in there. Then when she left, I had lifetime, like this lady that I've known forever that helped me out as a teenager. She wanted to move out, and then kind of changed at the last minute. I was frustrated. I had this guy offer to come in. I didn't really know him, but I didn't spend the due diligence to figure out who he was and his history. And he caught me on the right day or the wrong day, where I was like, okay, like I don't really want to deal with this. You seem good enough. Let's get you in. And it was a total
Damn.
disaster, like
So you
so
didn't do a
bad. But
background, you didn't do a background check or credit check or any of that stuff.
I didn't run too much on him. He just hired me to do like fitness and nutrition. He had gotten a new job recently that was high paying. He had a couple kids. It was just like, I was like, okay, he wants to get healthy. He's like 4 months at this new job, which is like a good 6-figure job. He's got a couple kids that he's got half time. He can't be that bad. I couldn't have been more wrong. Like, there almost couldn't have been a worse person to move in there. So,
Damn. So eventually you decide to go live in Mexico and live
mhm.
there full time. Was that in Mexico City or was that in Tijuana? Where in Mexico was that?
So I was down on the Pacific side, on the ocean. It's a place called Puerto Escondido. I highly recommend it. It's amazing. It's safe. It's kind of a little surf town. I have a lot of good friends there now. It's a place I'll always go to. It's amazing, beautiful spot, and yeah, it's
How was life different there than living in Southern California or
it's
Northern?
just so at the time I left because I didn't agree with how things were going with COVID. I wasn't going to follow all the rules and the restrictions and all the stuff that was going on. So I was like, okay, I'll take my daughter and we're just going to move down there. And we went down there and it was like instantly it went from like everyone's angry and wearing masks and stuff to like just outside on the beach, everyone's happy, everyone's hanging out, training jiu-jitsu, just at restaurants doing dinner. It was just like back to normal life. Everyone was super healthy and good, and still, I remember COVID still came to the gym real quick, but no one even got really sick. Everyone would be like, "Oh, I felt kind of shitty for a day." We didn't end up getting it, but like, I don't. Everyone was just healthy and happy, and especially at the time, so the peso to dollar conversion was extra good. So it was just really good to get away, to kind of get away from the craziness. The money went extra far. It's really simple, just kind of a good way to live, especially for that time.
How old was your daughter when you moved?
9.
9. What did she
Yeah.
think? Like now I'm assuming she's changing schools and doesn't see her
Yes.
friends, and now she's in Mexico and her dad's
Yeah.
fighting people. Yeah.
She loved it, so she had a good time down there. So it was COVID, so it was like she was out of school anyways. So they like basically kicked her out of school, like all of the schools they shut down. So she kind of didn't go to school from third grade to fifth grade, but she had private lessons for Spanish, so kind of Spanish immersion 3 days a week. That was pretty heavy, and she would read a lot. And she ended up going back to school, which was like a private school that was above all the other schools. She was a little bit behind in math. She was super advanced in reading. She was good on everything else. She was the best Spanish speaker at the school, besides the kid from Mexico. And like overall, yeah, it was good. She didn't really, she was having to catch up on
Yeah, I think we all need a little catch up on math. So that's fine.
that.
Uh,
Yeah.
was there any part of you as a parent that you were nervous? Like, geez, I don't want to mess up my kid. Like, I'm moving to Mexico. Or you're like, it's gonna be totally fine. She'll be fine. We'll figure it out.
I thought it was a positive to experience and stuff. And like it's super safe, and to expose her, and her accent is perfect. Like I probably have a wider vocabulary, but I still sound like a white guy speaking Spanish. And
Yeah,
she like when you were saying bye to people when you're leaving, they thought she was like born there just because her
yeah.
accent was so spot on and so good. And she makes fun of me for that I say stuff wrong all the time. And yeah, no, I think overall it was a super good experience for her to see and kind of live that way for a while.
Did she still practice it? Did she practice her
So
Spanish?
not as much as I would like. So she switched schools again, and they didn't have language there. And she was using it. We went to visit a couple months ago. We stayed for a few weeks. And when she saw her friends that lived down there, I could hear her speaking it. And same thing, she would make fun of me and tell me how to say words right. But not as much as I like. I wish she could have a group where she could really practice it
Hmm.
and expand on it. But
So why not stay there? Like, why'd you end up coming back?
it got a little bit boring, to be
Hmm.
honest. Like as amazing as it was like it sounds weird when I tell people this, like to sit on the beach every day and to just like it just got to like a little bit monotonous. And Groundhog Day, it just seemed like we needed a different adventure and a different thing to do at this point. And especially her being that age, what are we gonna do? Like, and that's when I kind of realized, like, okay, maybe I need to start finding other stuff to do. I was like, okay, I'm 40 years old. I got a chunk of money. I don't necessarily need to, especially living there. Like, I could continue this lifestyle forever. But like, what are we getting out of it? There's no adversity. There's no really kind of compression or expression for her either. It was amazing for the time. It was just like, it's maybe time to kind of move on from there. So.
Hmm. Were your friends and family like happy to have you guys back in the States or back in California?
Yeah, 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 definitely. So our plan to come back was to move to Casablanca. So we came back because you need at least 6 months on your passport to get into some countries, and we had to come back and go to San Francisco to get our emergency passport. We had flights booked to Morocco for early September. In that time, we're planning on got her to a school there. We're planning on moving out there. Yeah, just things kind of. We got back. We were here for a month, and then we were kind of thinking like maybe should we stay? Flights ended up getting canceled. There was a resurgence in COVID, so we just kind of yeah, we ended up looking at everything and deciding to stay here. And initially, it was only supposed to be for the school year, and then we've just stayed since. So it's about 3 years
Okay, very cool. And what you mentioned earlier that you were training people out of like a home gym or something like that in
now.
the garage.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
how's that different than when you were training people in like, school that you owned? Now you're doing it out of the garage. Like how does that work?
I set up the garage to where it's pretty nice. So I did. We've got the Dollar mats. We ended up putting in a floor, basically that for a compression floor and everything. So it's thick. It's probably 700 square feet of mat space. I've got like 3 baths. We've got a bathroom and stuff. So it's not maybe a total typical garage setup. So it's like a just a kind of a smaller gym. And I initially thought I was going to teach more classes, but I also realized like this is at my house. I don't want everyone here. It's a little bit. It gets packed easier than I thought it was. And then I do like the freedom of traveling. Like we recently went to Mexico. We like to go do a lot, and just the private lessons. I like better. The more one-on-one, I can accomplish a lot more, and I don't have to have that strict schedule. Where if I'm teaching classes all the time and I have groups of people counting on me, I can't just pick up and go somewhere else. So I just kind of decided to go that way instead.
Cool. Is your daughter trained with you?
She doesn't. So she trained a lot of jiu-jitsu when we were in San Diego and then in Mexico, and she's just kind of gotten away from it. And yeah, if she wants to get back in later on, that's fine. But I don't think she ever loved it. She liked it, but yeah, she didn't love it per se. So.
You think she did it to appease you, or because of some of her friends did it, and then now
A
she gotten
little,
older? It's like,
A little bit. I mean, it's a girl. Not all girls, love like wrestling, or I mean, not all guys like it either. But I think it's a little bit less even with females and just be rough. And now she likes to, like she likes to have nails and stuff. And she's like 13 and stuff. And she had a really good friend that she would do it with in San Diego and pick them up from school together and take them all the time. And then in Mexico, the gym was really amazing. So she had friends that did it there as well, and the access to a group atmosphere wasn't. There's only a couple little schools up here, and didn't really have big kids programs, and so it's just the kind of the combination of several things.
hmm.
And then the horseback riding and dance, and it just changes. So yeah, just
All
got a little
right.
bit of a base there, but yeah.
Cool. So do you think moving forward you'll keep on just traveling and doing private lessons out of the garage, or you see yourself eventually having like a school again, or you don't even know?
Possibly. I would really like to, especially the community here. I think it's needed. It would be good to have something to where a lot of the kids, teenagers, just people could maybe come train. But as far as to take that on, especially in California with a lot of the stuff, I was kind of thinking about it, but I wasn't sure about a lot of the regulations and stuff. But now I don't know if I got enough interest and maybe some confident people that wanted to help. I would consider
Hmm.
it. At this time, I think the private lessons and keep it smaller.
How do you find people for private lessons now, or how do they find you?
So they usually by word of mouth. Like people know what I did in the past, and they'll either reach out or they'll reach out for their kids, or somebody will train and hey, my friend wants to come train or he wants to check it out, or my kid or somebody from there. So yeah, I don't really advertise. It's just mostly word of mouth.
Cool. And then you're also doing dog breeding now. And I want to hear about
Yeah,
that because you said something
yeah.
like an XL something. What was it?
XL Pitbulls. Yeah,
XL Pitbulls.
yeah,
Yes, tell me
yeah.
about this XL Pitbull breeding that you're doing.
So that was that kind of same thing was on accident with when we moved back to Northern California and we were kind of settled with a house. I told my daughter we could get a dog, and so with that we decided on a pit bull because I've always loved those. We've had those, and I kind of searched out the best one I could find. And I researched and asked everybody, and there's a breeder in Connecticut called XXL Designer Pit Bulls, and there was a breeding by this dog that I've seen on the internet that I didn't even fully believe that existed, and he was having some puppies, and I was like, okay, we grabbed him up, and then she ended up hitting me up later and said there is this famous guy that bought one. He wasn't taking care of her at all. We're gonna grab him back, and basically, did I think I would kind of take her over and help get her from him, and then I just ended up having at that point 3 dogs already. I'm like, I'm taking care of these dogs all the time. I don't have really kind of like a set job or set schedule. I'm taking care of these dogs. Why don't we start the breeding? And it's kind of expanded from there. We've done it. I think I've done 3 breedings so far, and it's a lot of work. It's super hard, but I plan on definitely continuing to do it and just trying to build the biggest, meanest looking dogs that are the nicest possible. So I like to look as scary as possible, but be as nice as possible, basically. So,
Where do you get that from? That's crazy.
uh,
So you mentioned earlier doing the XL, obviously the XL dog, and you said you purchased it from someone. How much does that cost to get a dog from Connecticut from a breeder
yeah.
that's like a designer?
The first one, Canelo. By the time I got him to California, it was about $11,000.
Damn. Okay. Was that the
Yeah,
most you'd
yeah.
spent on a dog before?
At the time, yeah, but most of the dogs I bought have been around that. Like I have a couple little Frenchies that were about 10 grand. Uh,
Okay.
so Georgia, it didn't cost me, but the guy that originally bought her was that or more. I bought another one that I was going to use for breeding that was close to that. That ended up swallowing a rope and passing away. Yeah, yeah. If you get the kind of the top of line best ones, they end up being close to about 10 grand, especially like
Hmm.
shipping. I mean, shipping a dog from the East Coast to the West Coast is a couple $1,000s usually. So
How do you do that? Well, how do they ship
someone
it?
drives them. They have to get
Ah,
someone to drive the dog, and
damn, that's
yeah.
crazy. You
So
didn't
some guy,
you didn't want to do it? You didn't want to like fly and then drive across the country?
I
Was
did that drive when I was 18 years old. Um,
yeah.
one time, no, I wouldn't do that. Not for a couple $1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I hate long
that,
car rides. Like if it's like
yeah,
over a 4 hour car ride, I'm like, I'll fly. I'll see. Okay, I'll meet you there.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I don't enjoy it either. I got especially. Remember when I came back from when we were living in Mexico? I just owned a motorcycle. I hadn't been in a car forever. And I remember driving. We went to visit my brother in San Diego, and he was in Temecula. I'd drive my daughter to see her friends. It'd be 2 hours in the car, and I was like, "Fuck, I hate this." But I don't like, I don't like being in a vehicle for too long either. So that was,
so you mentioned a lot like wanting the freedom to travel, but now you have like these dogs that you obviously got to take care of. So how does that mix? Like how do you get the flexibility to travel, but also have big ass dogs you're breeding?
so I have 2 really good, competent people that can watch them when I'm gone. One is a lady that I sold a dog to that has one of my XL dogs, and yeah, they can come stay at the house and handle them. Yeah, basically just 2 competent people that I trust that can handle it. So
Okay, cool. So like about because I know nothing about the business, like about
uh,
how much does it cost to raise a dog? Like to for when like for when you're ready to sell it.
so I mean, it can vary so much. So there's times where it can be a complete disaster, and there's times where it can go super well. So you have to think. Um, Like for one of the females, if I get a stud from somewhere else, it's about $5,000 for the stud food. So to use a quality male, just to ship the sperm is $500. You have to do the progesterone test, so you have to see how close the dog is to heat before the artificial insemination, which those are like $100. That could be $300. It could be 1,000. You can the insemination, usually twice at $300-400. Then like depends on how many puppies you have. You can have one puppy, or you can have 12 puppies with these dogs. You know,
Yeah.
and then same thing with the Frenchies. They need they need so much more to have a cesarean. So it just depends. Like sometimes it's hope you hope to break even, and sometimes you can do super well. And actually, lately with the dogs, the prices have come down, especially with the people I know that focus primarily on the Frenchies. That like those have almost got cut in half. But my main focus is the bigger dogs and just creating kind of the best dogs over time and doing it more just because I love it. Yeah, I just made a commitment. We've got them anyways, and it's just gonna continue. And when you're in something long enough, just like the real estate, when it's good, it's really good, and when it's not, you just kind of you keep going, you plug along, maybe tighten up a little bit, and then just wait for when it's good again. So,
Are you ever sad to give the dogs away? Because like Canelo is like your dog, right? Like that
yeah.
one
Oh
stays.
yeah.
Canelo stays with you,
Yeah.
but the other
Yeah.
dogs, you ever grow attached? And cause I've fostered dogs before,
Uh huh.
where I'll take like I've probably done it. I don't know, maybe a dozen times, and I people always ask me like, how do you give the dog back? And usually it's because I'm going in the mindset of this dog is gonna go back. I'm just helping the dog not be in the shelter till someone else adopts. But I'm curious how you do it because obviously like your love for dogs I think is even greater, especially these big pit bulls.
Yeah, I think it can be, it's a weird thing because as long as they're going to a really good person, it's incredibly rewarding when you see them go to a family and you know how much they love them and they're sending you pictures and they're like, thank you so much. This dog is so, it's so amazing. And you just see like, especially these big dogs, they're so good and attached to kids that they just get and they follow the kids around and they help take care of them and just make sure they're good. And it's more rewarding in that way, and it's extra cool. But there is
Mm.
definitely ones you can sometimes get attached to. I'm getting better at like. There's been a couple dogs recently that if I didn't have so many already, I would have kept them for sure. There was like,
Mm.
there was one that recently on a litter. He ended up getting sick a little bit, and when he was like really little, so I had to bottle feed him. And then I ended up just because I was bottle feeding him so much, and I was just carrying him around and he'd just hang out with me. It was like that was one that was like I would have kept him for sure, but he went to a super good home that's in Tahoe, not too far. So yeah, it's just kind of what it is, and I just worry more about if you're just sending them somewhere that might not be the best spot.
Mm.
That's what would bother me as opposed to when and when it gets the right people, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, the best dog I fostered in terms of like just like the best personality, well behaved. I went to my friends. I'm like, yo, someone's got to adopt this dog. And like, I was traveling a lot at the time, and I live in the city, so I don't have a backyard or anything. So one of my close friends adopted this dog, and I still get to see the dog. And
Yeah,
even when I don't see her for a long time, it feels like she remembers me. It's like this extra like spends extra. It's so cool.
yeah.
Um,
They'll always remember your smell. They'll always remember
always
your
remember.
smell.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Do you when you see the dog? Does it ever seem like that? Was it a she, a female?
Yeah,
Uh, that she like right at first she might not recognize you, but then like it takes a second and then she overly does. Does it seem like that
yeah,
ever?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like oh,
So
sniff, and they get close to me, and they start going crazy.
yeah. So
Yeah,
she's like they won't forget that. It's like she probably forgets your face a little bit on occasion, but then realizes with the smell that it's you, and then yeah, lose their mind because she's so happy. So
yeah. It feels really good.
yeah.
So I would ask you some like training questions, some MMA questions. One of them I wrote down is like, how do you train differently now that you're not competitively fighting? Now that you're like older, how do you train differently?
So now the bulk of my training is mostly with like weights and yoga. I want to make sure that my body's good and that I can continually train on and just feel good and I can move correctly and be strong. I don't the most of the hard training that I do is only when I travel to places and I'm in that kind of atmosphere. And when I'm at home, it's like gym and then movement besides.
I see. You still sparring or?
Not that much. So I try and stay away from it just because I know myself better that like once if we go it's still yeah it's still there. So yeah, I remember the last time like if it's someone I know and I trust, it's fine, we can play around. But I think the last time that I sparred hard with people I didn't know was like Thailand probably 4 or 5 years ago, and then it always turns into like it gets a little bit rougher, and it's just not necessary at this point to be doing that.
Yeah, escalates.
Yeah, usually essentially it's yeah.
So, what's it like to be knocked out versus being choked out?
So I've had both happen just one time as far as, and yeah, being choked out. I remember I was at jiu-jitsu and I had like this big new white belt and he was practicing a move on me. And then I woke up and he was like, hey, he was all scared. I was like, oh shit, okay, I guess. Yeah, that's the only time that happened in training. And then it was in the UFC fight. I got knocked out. So that was much worse, of course. Just, but it's like, I don't know, 15 minutes of my life kind of just got like vanished is what it felt like. And it feels like, but you have like memories as like like a dream of what kind of happened, maybe. But it kind of just took that, yeah, it kind of took that little bit of time away because it takes a minute to be like, what exactly
Yeah,
just happened? So I didn't really register what exactly happened until I remember I was in the elevator, like leaving, I think it was at the Palms or something, and they were like, just talking to me, and I was just confused for a second, what exactly was going on. They were explaining it, and I was like, motherfucker, like you can't do it.
damn it.
So yeah, yeah. So
I've never been knocked out, but I have been choked out. And it was only one time I was in someone's rear naked. And like I was looking at the clock and I thought I was good. There was, 12 seconds left. And I'm like, I'll
yeah,
beat the clock. It's fine. And then of course I didn't. And then like I just remember being so embarrassed. Like I woke up
yeah,
and I was like, why am I sleeping on the mat? Like this is so embarrassing. Everyone's looking at me. And then
yeah,
I was like, oh I must have been out forever. And the guy's like, you're out for like 5 seconds. And
yeah,
no one was really looking at me. Like really no one. It
yeah,
was like so quick. But I remember I
yeah.
felt so refreshed. I was like, damn, I feel like I just took a long nap. I feel good now. Like it was
That's
awesome.
funny.
Someone should
I've
yeah, go
heard
ahead.
that from people. Yeah, I've heard that same thing. That's funny. Same thing. I just what happened to me when, and I think we were just, yeah, I'm pretty sure we were just drilling, and it was like some collar choke, and I'm like, no, a little bit adjust, and then he was like worried, like, oh shit. But it's definitely much healthier, I would say, to just get choked out.
They get
Um,
knocked out.
yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't remember either of them being too refreshing in either way, but I have heard that from friends that are funny that they're like, oh, it actually feels kind of good. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, it feels good, but I don't want it ever to happen again. Um, so what do you think about martial arts and kids? Like, do you think all kids should train in martial arts at some point? Do you think it's not for everyone? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a good idea at least to try for it. I think there's a lot of benefits. It's definitely not a negative. So there's only positive and good as long as you're with a good instructor and good people, and then they can see if it's for them and they like it. I think it's extremely beneficial to learn the skills, to move your body, to learn how to fight, for self defense, for confidence, for reality of how things could be. And I think it's extremely beneficial and good, and at least a try. So,
What's the number one benefit you think you got out of it? Like now when you look back, like if you had to boil it down to one thing, if you got this one thing and you didn't get anything else, it would still make it worth it. Worth it. What would that one thing be?
the benefit that I got the most. It's funny. I would think that I could easily just say what that was. I don't know. Like it's so weird because it's so ingrained in everything at different times. Probably confidence. Yeah, probably confidence on being able to handle myself with people.
You mean to handle yourself physically,
Yeah,
or you're
yeah,
more comfortable?
physically. Yeah, physically
Okay.
for sure. Yeah, the confidence to just know that I'm good with 99 of the people in the world. That if something needs to happen, yeah, that
You can handle your own. Cool. That's awesome. I'm gonna ask you some rapid fire questions. You don't have to answer them rapid fire, but I'm gonna they're all gonna be random. Is that
all
cool?
right. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
All right. First one is what is something people don't know about you?
There's a lot of stuff, and probably want to keep it that way. Maybe if I haven't told anyone, maybe I keep that to myself.
Okay, move on. Next one.
Yeah.
Anything you want to divulge that people don't know about you? Like, oh, that's interesting, or
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll just pass on that one.
okay. All right. Let me see. Tell me about a time you almost quit.
Shit, there's so many times in fighting
Yeah, and fighting.
or anytime that yeah, especially later on, anytime that you lose. I almost actually quit for a while after that, after I got knocked out in the UFC.
Hmm.
My whole plan, because when I started, I was always very cognizant of I didn't want to be one of those guys that had the brain damage later on in life, and I could see that. And it wasn't. I didn't see it right away in the guys, but it was like after I started training and being around a lot of the gyms and seeing the older guys that were still around, I was like, I do not want to be like that. So I set in my mind that I was either going to be 35 years old when I quit or when I got knocked out. And then I think that happened when I was 28. And that night, I told my manager, I told everyone, I was like, I'm done. That was the rule that I set to myself. That was what's happening. And I was set on being done. And they kind of, everyone kind of pulled me back and talked me into it. They were like, no, you can't quit. Like, yeah, there's no way, at this point. And I just kind of, yeah, got pulled back in. But I don't think I was ever 100% in after that point, just because I had that set. And so, yeah, I definitely took a step back after that. It wasn't the same.
Why do you think they were able to convince you, or how were they able to convince you to keep going if you set that rule for yourself?
Because I mean, deep down, I'm sure I wanted to. I didn't. It wasn't necessarily a hard thing to do, especially, you get to the point where you want to be and you're doing well. And then there's some like crazy come from behind knockout. So you're like, oh, I can be here. I was easily beating that person. And then that crazy, and then it's like, oh, but, um, then they start offering stuff, oh, we'll give you a Harley as well, and you should do it. And then and it's cool to be at that point. So it's definitely hard to pull away. It's very enticing. So it's like it wasn't super hard, but yeah, but I definitely had it set, and I kind of yeah, I wanted to. I had it set in my head, and I definitely. I was kind of set on it, but it wasn't too hard to convince me otherwise. So,
I mean,
yeah.
it sounds like they had you at Harley.
Yeah, that was a that was a big thing. And then the crazy thing is the managers actually didn't even end up giving it to me.
Ah,
Yeah,
motherfuckers. Oh
no,
my
that guy.
God.
No, I think he ended up getting sued and he got in trouble by a lot of other guys or something. He was like maybe not the most upstanding guy, but yeah.
Oh my God. What's the best gift you've ever received?
Um, that's ever.
And it can't be like your daughter. It's gonna be like
Yeah,
some.
I was trying to. That's what. Yeah, popped to my mind at first. Best gift I ever received. And actually, if you're not something that's simple, that's like meant a lot or different stuff, is probably different books that people have given me over time. Thinking like just all the information and just simplicity of a book and how it can kind of change the way you think and do stuff. So, I don't know, maybe the books that I receive from people or been
Yeah.
given.
So what book has had the biggest impact on your life?
I mean, there's a lot. I'm trying to think. One that really kind of shifted stuff. That Extreme Ownership by Jocko was really good. A Man's Search for Meaning is a really good book. Trying to think the books for that one. I've always read a lot of different categories. I always liked reading nonfiction, but yeah, maybe those two.
Yeah, those are good ones.
Yeah,
Yeah, I read
yeah.
both those.
So
What's one idea that you think the majority of people get wrong about you?
they probably think I'm a lot meaner than I am.
Like the XL Pitbulls.
Yeah,
They look
exactly.
mean, but they're
Yeah,
gentle giants, right?
yeah.
Uh,
They can get down if they need to, but yeah, prefer not
yeah.
to.
Would you? I think that's like the one thing people get wrong. I think about fighters or just martial artists in general. Like all martial artists that I know that are the most badass. Like a lot of them, first of all, do not look scary
Mhm.
or intimidating. Like a lot of them just look like like some of the best fighters are just like nerds that just got into really into fighting martial arts, right? And that's what they nerd out about, right? And the
Especially
second thing
now
is
with jujitsu.
yeah, especially now with jiu-jitsu. Yeah. Yeah, it looks like some guy who works at Staples, but he'll like literally murder you in 5 seconds. And the second thing is usually fighters usually they're just really nice people, right? It's rare that someone's like an asshole. It's like usually they're the most kind and patient and like I feel like they get out all the aggression and like work out and know what it's like to like struggle. So they're usually some of the nicest people. That's rare. I'll
Yeah.
meet like a jerk who's in martial arts.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
all right. Would you rather spend 1 year at the North Pole or 2 years in the Sahara Desert?
2 years in the desert.
The desert, damn, you got
Yeah.
sunburn.
Yeah.
All right. What is your spiciest opinion that most people disagree with or would disagree with?
Spiciest opinion. Way more conservative after all this COVID stuff and everything that's going on. I really don't like the way things are going with all the just gender identity, LGBT stuff in the schools and everything these days. I 100% support everyone, human rights, who they want to be, who they want to love. But I just think it needs to it's really excessive at my daughter's school and what they do, and it's just too much. It just needs to be, yeah, yeah. It's been hijacked. Like a good thing has been hijacked by a bunch of weirdos, is what I think.
Yeah, it must be a culture shock for her for going to school in Mexico to some school in California that's like you could be whatever you want tomorrow and you're like 12 years old or 13 years
Mhm.
or even
Yeah.
younger sometimes for telling them that.
Well,
Um,
she's been in a lot of different schools, and we literally went from San Diego to Mexico to a private Catholic school to an art school to like a school of the arts. So the school of the arts was like it was just too much. It was like yeah, um, it was just ridiculous, and I mean just the classes and the stuff they were doing, and it's like just the health classes, like teach about health, just teach how the body works and what needs to be done. Not the first thing shouldn't. Yeah, it was just way too much. I just yeah, the kids are
okay.
making fun of it. Yeah, it's over the top for sure.
Mm. Complete this answer. I feel most alive when.
When fully focused on the present moment. That's why I always love fighting. That's why I love riding motorcycles. That's why I love hunting. So yeah, any of those things would definitely make me feel the most alive for sure.
What's the next hunting season? What's coming up?
Saturday is bow season for deer and bear. So
Hmm. Do you have
yeah,
a big freezer in the basement or something, a garage?
uh, yeah, in the stores I do. Yeah, I do. I'm looking forward to it.
I just got my hunting license. I grew up in Philadelphia. None of my friends
Uh-huh.
hunted ever. Like it wasn't
Yeah.
even a thing. And then I read some Stephen Ranella books, maybe like
Oh,
three or four years ago.
he's yeah, I love that guy. He's
Yeah,
my favorite. Like, yeah, very good writer. His shows are amazing. He's like, yeah, he's a good transition for anybody that's like, especially if they have an opinion of this like idiot hunter or something. Go talk to that guy. Watch his shows. Look, read his books. Like
yeah. That
he
was
stands out above the
100% my
rest.
opinion. My opinion was like, yeah, I'm gonna go shoot a deer in the face, and like chug beers. That's like I didn't
Yeah,
know. No one in my
yeah,
life hunted. Everyone's in the city. Like we play basketball and like we're not going hunting. I don't even know what. Like anyone that owned a gun was like a 9 for protection, and that was it. So when I read the books, I was like, damn, this is so cool. Like I want to be able to hunt for food if I need to for my family. So I got a hunting
uh-huh.
license. I've been out hunting now 3 times, so it hasn't been much in the last year and I haven't even pulled the trigger once. So I've gone on some nice
Yeah.
walks.
Yeah,
But
armed hiking. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
That's we haven't seen anything. I did duck hunting, which is us sitting in the cold for hours till my toes wanted to freeze off, and no ducks came and landed.
yeah.
We did what else was there? We went for grouse. My brother-in-law hands me a shot. It was my
Okay.
brother-in-law. He grew up in California, so he grew up hunting. And so he brought me and he's like, all right, we're gonna hunt grouse. And I was like, cool. So we drive up to the mountains and I'm like, all right, what does a grouse look like? And he get out of the car, and he's like, he
Yeah,
hands me a shotgun. He's like, it looks like a grouse. I'm like, okay. So
yeah,
I see I'm like, you expect me to see a bird, identify it, like
yeah.
pull up the shotgun and like aim. Like there's no
Uh,
way. Like I'll be fast enough. And of course we come across one. I'm like, and like flies away.
yeah,
And I'm gonna come close to bring it up the gun.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah, I'm excited to get more into it as I get more
it is
practice.
hard. It's extremely hard at first. Grouse too, that would even be on the slower end. But I remember you take people like dove hunting or quail hunting, and if they don't know what kind of bird it is, yeah, it can. You got to register what it is very fast, and
Yeah,
that's a hard one for sure.
it would have been helpful to have a picture of it before I got there because there's no service in the mountains. So it
Hmm.
would have been like, oh, here's what it looks like, and here's how it flies. We'd watch a couple YouTube. It was like when I already got out of the car, and he hands me the goofy orange vest. I look like Elmer Fudd with his big ass shotgun, and I'm like, cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on here. And if there's someone who's listening and they want to get in contact with you, maybe they live in that area and want some lessons, or maybe like they just want to say what's up because they connected to your story. How do they find you?
See, the best way these days they're just on social media. So just Brodie underscore Farber on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook or whatever. Yeah, just through there. It's probably an easy way. I'm on there each day. Just send me a message and we can connect.
Cool. And if you're listening now and you're a martial arts school owner and you want to grow your school organically without depending on paying for crappy leads that don't answer the phone or not in your area, and you want to be able to earn new students through organic marketing, reach out to me, Matthew, at wyourdojo.com. Find me on Instagram at blackbeltbrenner1, or you can visit the website wyourdojo.com. Thanks, Brodie.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Matt.